Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all okay. Thanks for joining me today. This is another DMR series of videos. The last one seemed to be really popular, so I'm glad you enjoyed them. This one, we're going to be looking at the Ailunce HD1. So I'm working with Ailunce on this radio. They kindly sent me this radio to review. As with the other radios that I've reviewed, such as the Bofeng RD5R, I'm not being paid to review this radio. I've just been sent it to give an honest review on this radio. So my findings are what you'll get. I'm not going to tell any porkies or dress it up to be something it's not. I'll just give you an honest review of what I think of this radio. I've got to say, from what I've seen so far, it's a game changer and it works well. So what I'm going to do in this first part is go through the basic overview of the radio. We'll have a look inside the box, we'll look in the menus, we'll look at the programming, we'll look at the setup on this thing, we'll go over the features, and then in part 2 we'll do some range testing with this and see how well it performs. So as I say, this radio is a game changer. It's basically designed for the amateur radio community. A lot of DMR radios, such as Motorola radios, the original TYT MD380 before the firmware hack, and other DMR radios are based on a commercial format. DMR is a commercial format that amateur radio hobbyists have sort of gotten their hands on, and it's a great mode, but a lot of you will agree the programming and the use of these radios is hard work. I know a lot of radio amateurs that have switched over to DMR, relied on friends, some of the older boys out there who are relying on friends to program these things, and the goalposts change all the time. So you need a radio that can be modified easier without loads of programming, basically that can be set up from the handset. And this is the one, the Ailunce HD1. So this is quite a newish radio. It's been out a few months, and as I say, it looks like a game changer. It is designed for the amateur radio hobbyist rather than a radio that's built on the commercial framework that other ones are. So what we'll do is we'll run through some of the features. I'm going to show you some of the features as we go through this review, and then we'll have a look inside the box. Okay, so this is a dual band DMR and analog radio for VHF and UHF with dual VFO, unlike commercial DMR radios. Has the ability to type in the frequency and transmit straight away from the keypad. Analog and digital modes are combined on this radio on both VFOs, and they can be switched between really easily. So you can switch between analog and digital and VHF and UHF with the click of a button. The frequency band on this radio is 136 to 174 and 400 to 480 MHz, so the VHF and UHF bands. And it has a receive-only FM radio between 76 and 107.9 MHz. You can store up to 100,000 contacts in this radio, and 1,000 priority contacts can also be stored, and you can store 3,000 memory channels which you can program to your choice. It is compatible with Motorola Tier 2 DMR, so it has the dual time slot for repeater use, so it is compatible with any other DMR system out there. It has the dual time slot for point-to-point, and the firmware is fully upgradable for additional features. So Ailunce periodically release firmware updates which you can download and program into the radio. And quite a lot have been released since this first came out. If you look at some of the early reviews, they are on a sort of test stage firmware. So the one, if you were to buy this radio, you would get the latest firmware installed on it. It is IP67 waterproof. Not that I'm going to test that, but it is waterproof. You can see some of the features when we look inside the box, which make it waterproof. And it has a high, medium, and low power setting. So 10 watts on high, 5 watts on medium, and 1 watt on low. Has a encryption function for more privacy, and one of the big features is promiscuous mode, which I'm going to cover in a second. You can program in your DMR user ID, so a database is available to insert thousands of call signs, so the information on that person comes up on the screen, so the name, call sign, and sometimes you can put your location on it as well, and you can download that on the internet and install it into the radio, which is handy. You have single, group, or all call, so you can call a specific radio, you can call a specific group, or you can call everyone on the network on DMR, which is handy. You can basically, it works like a phone, you just type in the number of the person, or select the contact you want to call, or select the group you want to call and key up, and it will contact that user or a group of users. It has remote kill, remote stun and remote activate functions, which I always turn off in case someone manages to stun my radio. That basically, if you were to use this commercially and a radio was stolen or lost, you can just kill it or stun it if it's still within range of the network, and it won't work anymore. There is an optional GPS function, which I don't have, but that's basically something that you can get from Ailunce. For analog mode, it has CTCSS and DCS codes, so you can access repeaters, and it just gives you a little bit of privacy in terms of interference coming in. It doesn't always need a computer to program it, as features can be accessed from the keypad, which is what makes it a game changer, and it has Vox, so it keys up when it hears audio, a timeout timer, talk around, so that allows direct communication while still being able to hear a repeater, and it has a password lock. Tons of other functions on this, guys, as you can see on the screen. So you've heard me mention promiscuous mode quite a few times already in this video, and it is a really handy feature. Basically, on a DMR repeater, whether it's amateur or commercial, it has a lot of talk groups, or they can have a lot of talk groups. So DMR repeaters can have 16 upwards talk groups, which makes it hard because you have to program each individual talk group into a radio to be able to hear it, and then you have to have it on scan or flick through the radio channels to hear those individual talk groups. Promiscuous mode eliminates that, so basically what it does is it's listening to all talk groups at the same time. But you don't need to program them in, if that makes sense. So you don't have to have them there programmed in for it to be able to monitor. It will listen out for any talk group on that repeater. So all you need is the color code and the time slot, and you're ready to go. So once you've put the frequency, color code and time slot in, promiscuous mode, when switched on, will monitor all talk groups on a repeater, which is really handy. That isn't available on a lot of commercial DMR equipment. It's not available on Motorola equipment as of time of filming, and it was only available on the TYT MD380 when it was put into a hacked firmware which was released. It doesn't come as standard. So promiscuous mode is one of the things that make this radio a game changer. It's such a handy feature to have and eliminates the need for complicated programming. So what we'll do now, guys, we'll bring the camera in and we're going to have a look in the box and see what you get for your money. Okay, so this is the box the radio comes in. It's quite a plain and simple box there, and if we have a look inside, we've got a user manual on the front which had a flick through. The English is very good. It comes with basically everything you need to know about this radio, all the features, all the menus explained in detail, all the buttons and things like that. So that's a good manual. It's in full English as well, and good English, so that's a positive. We've got the radio itself here, which we'll come to in a second, and the battery, quite a chunky battery. We've got the 3-pin UK power plug there. We've got a belt clip. We've got an Ailunce charging dock there, which is a 12 volt input and a DC 8.4 volt output. We've got the obligatory wrist strap, and we've got a rather nice chunky VHF and UHF antenna there, which is seems really well made. It's a rubber duck style antenna, and that looks like it's going to do the job. Okay, so assembly is very simple. The battery just clips onto the back and the radio goes into the top. If we have a look at this battery, it's the Ailunce HD1 battery. It's a DC 7.4 volt output battery, 3200 milliamp hour lithium ion battery. Quite a chunky cell there, so that's going to do the job. Antenna here is a VHF and UHF antenna, so 136 to 174 megahertz and 400 to 480 megahertz there. And it has the standard SMA type connector on the end. And then if we look at the radio, we've got the speaker, we've got the microphone, we've got the LCD display, we've got the keypad on the front. On the side, we've got two programmable buttons there and the PTT. On the back, we've got the rubberized ports there which protect the battery. The rubberized port covers there which protect the battery should this get wet. We've got the speaker mic socket there, which is rubberized and screws on, so it's completely waterproof. And then on the top, we've got the on and off and volume button, and we've got the channel and talk group select button there, which is a rotary switch. and of course the SMA connector. Got some screws on the back there which we can connect the belt clip to, and as I say, the battery just slides on and clips into place like that. And we'll just screw the antenna on. So the end of the antenna goes into a recess there to keep any water out should this radio get wet. And that's basically what you get inside the box. So we'll bring the camera a little bit closer and we're going to have a look at the menus and what's inside this radio before programming. Okay, so if we switch the radio on, I hope you can see the display in this quite harshly lit room. The display is nice and bright. There you go. Okay, so if we switch the radio on, you can see we've got the battery meter at the top there, and you can see what frequency we're on. We're in VFO mode, we're on FM, high power, narrow deviation, and we're on 145/500. You can just input any frequency here, it's just off the keypad like so. To change it, you can see we're still on FM. If you want to switch to DMR, you just press and hold the exit button, and you can see we've changed to DMR on the screen there. So that's the VFO basically operating in DMR mode. If you press and hold, so if you press the exit button once, you can go into your memory channels there, which you've got programmed in, and I'll show you how to go between those in a little while. So if we look in the menus, you just click on menu here. We've got main settings, so we've got squelch, battery save, voice, so that's the Chinese or English voice. We've got Vox, delay, hang up time, TX channel, key define, where you can basically select what your keys on the side do. We've got the backlight, Roger beep, sorry, that's the keypad beep. We've got key lock, channel mode, scan mode, save or delete channels, Roger beep, select the time, voice tail. So that's basically the main settings there for the whole of the radio. That's quite straightforward. If we look into band A settings, we've got zones. So basically zones are basically like banks. So we've got different zones here. So we've got all channels, 7cm repeaters, PMR 446, DMR, PMR, we've got GB7MR there, and all channels. So basically what you can do is you can go to a different zone, click confirm, and then just come out of the menu, and you can see we're in that zone there of PMR. So we've got the PMR channels. If we go back into zone and select GB7MR and come out of it, you can see we've got the talk groups there for GB7MR. So that's quite straightforward, and of course you can use that to cycle through all channels like so. So we're back into DMR simplex there, PMR, we've got GB3MR, the analog repeater, and then we're back to GB7MR. So quite straightforward. We've got the step, so you can select your frequency step for VFO mode there. We've got power, so you've got your 10 watt, your 5 watt and your 1 watt power settings. We've got Vox settings, Vox level, wide or narrow deviation, timeout timer, CTS and DCS codes, channel name, busy lock. We've got the shift, so whether the repeater shift is a plus or a minus shift, and you can set the frequency. So for example, if you're doing a local repeater, you'd perhaps put a shift of plus 0.6 in there. So you set your, I can't do it because I'm in a DMR channel, but you set your plus or negative there and your offset there. So quite straightforward. You can select your color code here, so you can go through your different color codes. You can select your encryption type and the encryption number. You've got DMR mode there, so you can select between simplex repeater and double slot. You can select your DMR slot there really easily. So you see what I mean by being able to basically set this up from the keypad. You've got promiscuous mode. You've got our radio ID here there, so you can see my DMR ID. We've got contacts, so you can select a contact. We've got receive list, and that's basically band A settings, and it's exactly the same for band B, as you can see. And you can also set promiscuous mode on or off in there. We've got message settings, so you have an inbox here, which nobody sent me any messages. But you can basically write a message here, like so, and you can then send that to a group or a single user by using their DMR ID. You've got sent items, quick text there, which I've not programmed anything in yet. So that's basically, you can send text messages over DMR. We've got call logs, so you can see you missed, answered and outgoing calls, so that's for group and single calls. We've got our contacts, we've got the radio ID, we've got the radio, basically the FM radio there, which you can switch on and off. Encrypt, and the version, so it shows you your radio ID, so your radio version and your firmware version in there. And that's basically the menu, so it's quite straightforward to set up. Okay, so how straightforward is that? A really simple menu layout that eliminates a lot of the complications of programming and the ability to basically get this radio out of the box and talk over DMR. Absolutely fantastic. The programming is, like any other DMR radio, quite a complex operation. There's a lot to take into account when programming DMR radios, and it can be quite stressful. But I'm going to show you the programming software. It's as simple as straightforward as any other piece of DMR programming software, such as the TYTMD380, the Bofeng RD5R, anything like that. It's just as straightforward and easy to use. So I'm going to show you that now, and we'll go through the programming and show you how to basically set the radio up for use over a computer. Okay guys, so you can see we've got the HD1 software here. This is available from Ailunce's website. I'll put a link in the description. And we've got the radio code plug read into the software already. You basically plug your radio in. The programming cable is slightly different. As you can see, it screws into the side of the radio because that port on the side is actually waterproof. So you plug your radio in, plug it into the computer, and you click on device. You can select your communication report and click read, and it will read the information into the radio. Okay, so you can see we've got the menu settings down the side here. It's quite easy on the eye, this bit of software. I think it's a lot better than some of the other DMR softwares that are out there. One main reason you'll see in a minute. So if we expand that first menu, we've got basic settings here. I'm just going to close that off. We've got basic information, so when you read your radio, it'll give you the serial number, the version date, and the firmware version in there, and you can close these boxes off without losing any information. We've got settings here, and I'm going to point out now, Ben from Radiotification did a fantastic piece of video on this software where he did a detailed walkthrough every single function. So I'd recommend that video. I'm just going to show you a basic overview because Ben's already done the detailed video, so you can see that for yourselves on his channel. You can see we've got password settings at the top there, so you can include a password for reading and writing this radio, so should it fall into the wrong hands, they can't tamper with it. We've got language settings, squelch, relay transmission, battery save, power saving, voice enunciation, digital hand-up residence, individual work response time, individual work reminder time, zone selection for A and B, and we've got the tail eliminate modes and things like that, keypad lock, tones, Roger beep, radio kill, radio wake up. These are all detailed in the manual and on Ben's video, so have a look if you want to know what they mean. I'm not going to go into tons of detail on it. We've got display here, so you can choose between your A and B frequency, and you've got your backlight time there, a power on password, and Vox delay settings as well. So again, you can just close that off. We've got key settings here, so you can set your functions for side key 1 and side key 2, either a long press or a short press. So there's 4 different functions you can include there, such as radio, wake up, repeater talk, round, high and low power settings, scan. So plenty of features you can cram into those 4 buttons. We've got one key call, which basically allows you to press a key to look up a contact and call that one contact. So that's quite handy. More handy for commercial users. And we've got ID settings, so you can put your radio and DMR ID in here, so you can see my DMR ID and call sign on the menu there. If we look at channels, this is what sets this radio programming aside from all the others. It's just a lot easier to use. It's very similar to any other to any other analog programming software out there, and very different to DMR software. You'll see there isn't a massive list of channels down the side. They're all in one menu here. So as you can see, I've got DMR repeater channels here. We've got digital simplex just below that, and then we've got PMR. So if we look at an analog channel, it's very simple. You just program in your receive frequency, your transmit frequency. You select whether it's an analog or digital channel. You can put your CTCASS codes for transmit and receive on there. Select your power level, so high, medium and low, so 10 watt, 5 watt, 1 watt. Add it to the scan list. You can select your radio bandwidth there, and you can give it a name. That's dead straightforward. Same for programming a repeater. If we just scroll down, you can see I've got GB3MR there, programmed in just the same way. We've got the CTCSS code. Dead simple. If we look at a DMR channel, so if we go up to a GB7MR entry there, we've got the basic information program on the front, and if we click on more, you can see it brings up everything else. So we can look at the slot, we can look at the color code, we can look at the receive lists, we can look at what talk group we're talking on, and it just makes it a lot easier to get into that detail on the DMR side of things without getting completely confused. You've got your channels exactly where you need them, and you can always revert back to this box here just to make sure you're doing things right. So it's a lot more simple than any other piece of DMR software out there. And it didn't take me long to program this at all, whereas when I program the MD380, it does take me ages. So this just makes things a little bit quicker. We've got zone information, so these are basically, think of them as scanner banks. So we've got GB7MR there. If we click on that, we've got all the talk groups needed for GB7MR. If we look at DMR, PMR, we've got basically a group of the DMR simplex channels there. If we look at PMR 446, we've got the 16 PMR channels programmed in. And then if we look at 70cm repeaters, we've just got GB3MR programmed in there. I haven't put any more in yet. So that's simple. You can basically access your zones from the front of the radio and select which sort of bank you want to go through. Radio is your FM radio settings there, so you can put a default frequency in there, so like so, and that's as straightforward as you need. We've got contacts, so we've got priority contacts here, so these are your talk groups, so you can see there we've got talk group 9 local, and its ID is number 9, so they're your talk groups programmed in, and you can put a city, province or country in, but you don't need to. And then if we look at address book contacts, I haven't put anything in here, but you can basically put a DMR user in here, so you can put the name, the call sign, the location in, and you can call them that way. If you also click on import contacts, you need to download a spreadsheet which you can get off the internet, which basically has thousands of DMR users in, so when you're talking to someone, it gives their full information, or as much information as they give to your radio, so you can see who you're talking to. That's really handy. If we look at receive group list there, we've got a list of receive group contacts there, so you can put your talk groups in that. So if you had one repeater, you could put the talk groups for that repeater in a receive group list. And of course, we've got DMR service, which is your encryption settings there. So I'm sure you'll agree, guys, DMR programming is complicated, but this radio software makes it a little bit simpler. There is an element of research involved in programming DMR radios. You need to find what talk group a DMR repeater is using, because they don't all use them all, but promiscuous mode does help with that, because you can access it from the keypad and you can basically listen to all talk groups. So as I say, Ben from Radiosification did do a detailed programming walkthrough on this radio, so go and check out his channel, go and check out that video if you want to know anything I've missed, because I've just done an overview of the programming software. If you want to know any more, then check out Ben's video. He's done the programming software in minute detail, and you'll get everything you need from that video. Okay guys, so that was part 1 on the Ailunce HD1. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, drop them in the box below. It's a really handy radio. I'm so impressed with it for my sort of out of the box initial findings. I think it's because it's so rugged, it's going to be handy and going to be quite appealing to those who are going to want to use this outdoor. It has many applications. You can use this like camping, hill climbing, walking, and with the addition of DMR radios being connected to internet and broadcasting all over the country, you've got a lot of coverage from one handheld as opposed to an analog radio. So it does put it in good stead for sort of outdoor type uses. As I say, it's IP67 rated, so it is waterproof, so it's going to survive a splash or a drop in a puddle should that happen, so that's something less to worry about. And it's really rugged. I think if you were to drop this on the floor or on a concrete pavement, I think it would survive quite well, which is another positive. You can't say that for a lot of other radios. So yeah, plenty of positives going for this radio, guys. Stay tuned for part 2. I'm going to do a full analog and digital range test on this. We'll do a short and long range test like we do in the other videos to see how it performs, what the audio is like, things like that. And other than that, I'll say 7.3 for now. As I say, drop me any comments, suggestions in the box below. If you haven't clicked the like button, then click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any other videos. And I'll leave that on there, guys. Thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.